but we have a delay. I never know when real live is real live. Hi, Victoria. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm good. How are you?
We're going to talk about... That sounds canned. Are you all right? That was weird. That was a weird greeting.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Oh,
Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
We're gonna talk about...
Today was a weird day.
Has it been?
Yeah, it was a weird day.
Why?
Just had a lot of cancellations and... which I know sometimes people can't help. So, people get sick, things come up.
It is that time of year.
Yeah.
That's
and I was supposed to have I was supposed to have 3 new people today, and then 1 did not show up. And I kind of get sad sometimes.
Why do you schedule an appointment and not come? It always drives me nuts. Anyway, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and that is behind-the-scenes therapist speak, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. Listen, we're going to talk about groups today. The thoughtful questions that we're going to talk about, or want you to think about, are what are your thoughts or reservations about sharing personal experiences in a group setting? Also, second, have I ever experienced a sense of healing or understanding from being a part of a supportive group, even outside of therapy? And lastly, what do I think I can gain from participating in group therapy setting? Hopefully, you think there are things to gain because it's good stuff. But nevertheless, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and if you're catching us for the first time on this platform, we do before the live mics on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and whatnot. This is us. I don't know. I got screwed up there.
Yeah, you get a little tidbit like you just got of what our conversations are like off mic.
Exactly.
A little unhinged.
So anyway,
okay.
we love connecting with you. You can catch the YouTube lives at 6:15 to 6:30 in Thursdays, most every Thursday, and email and all of that, and we can interact during the show, and it's kind of cool. So we are going to fire it up here in a moment. Neil's typing some stuff, and then we'll get going. So you've had a weird week. Weird day.
Yeah, no, kind of a weird week, too.
Weird week.
Yeah, but definitely today. And it was raining here where we are, and that just...
miserably cold and rainy.
Yeah, and that always makes me just want to, stay at home in bed and curl up and, watch Christmas movies or read or something.
Are you a Hallmark movie girl?
I watch them for their cringiness.
Oh.
Yeah, sometimes.
I successfully held you off the Christmas stuff for another week? Question mark?
Well, in the lobby, yeah. But I put up the Christmas tree in my office. It's not decorated yet, but it's up.
I saw that today.
And my Christmas stuff is up at my house.
That's cool.
But
all right, how we doing, Neil?
Ready to go when you are.
Good.
Ready to go. Let's fire it
Get
up.
her done.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and this is November the 14th. 2024. We don't have much to go before we hit 2025, right?
Isn't that crazy?
Holidays, as it is now, it is. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. If you're finding us for the first time, we welcome you aboard. Welcome you here. We're looking for YouTube on Thursdays live. If you're hearing this on Spotify or Apple iTunes, your part in the show is giving us a thumbs up. I listened to a YouTube something 2 days ago or something, and I realized that I always ask people, please, we need the likes, we need the thumbs up, we need the subscriptions, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I did? I clicked off that YouTube before I hit the like button. That's terrible. I really liked the content.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, also liking stuff, I think it makes it easier to go back and find it.
Does it really?
I think so. Is it I don't know. If you like something, does it go in your profile of videos that you've liked?
I don't know. I won't drone on too much longer, but please, 5 stars, reviews, help us, tell friends. We do have a new YouTube subscriber that Alex Rosenberg joined the ranks. So welcome, Alex. Glad you found us. This is where you get insights from a panel of therapists in your car or personal time at home, knowing it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. We have the contact at throughatherapist'seyes.com is the way to contact us. And we'll always will reply to you. And the questions that we're going to have today, hopefully I already said that we're going to be talking about groups today. The value of groups. Victoria, do you have anything bad to say at all about groups in
About groups.
yeah,
And the aspect of therapy.
concerns,
Honestly,
problem points, any
I can see how other people might have some concerns about groups.
I'm not asking other people.
But
I'm
me
asking
personally,
Victoria,
no, not really.
Right?
Yeah.
Mic drop. No negatives.
Yeah.
I would really wanted John to be with us because I wanted to
Yeah.
ask him that as well and see what he feels or what he thinks. But he had some things he had to tend to today.
Yeah.
He is okay. Nothing wrong with
Maybe
John.
he can join your month in review.
That's possible. That'd be cool. But nevertheless, a little random, but okay.
Sorry.
So we don't have John, but I wanted to see if any of us really had any kind of concerns, because I'm not going to make any ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm going to suggest to you my particular stance on groups is that they're fan-freaking-tastic and very little, if any, drawbacks that I can think about. And I'm not just talking about therapy groups. I'm talking about any kind of group that you might be oriented with. Things happen in groups that we cannot have happen alone, and that inherently is cool. I think that's a statement I'm going to make.
Are we talking about even virtual groups like Facebook groups
100%.
and things
100%,
like that?
100%. Groups of people create great value,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So the questions are, what are your thoughts or reservations about sharing personal experiences in a group setting? I really think that's an important question.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever experienced a sense of healing or understanding from being a part of a group, particularly a supportive group, or especially even outside of therapy? And I hope you're saying yes to that question, guys. If you haven't, you're isolating way too much, I suspect. And lastly, I know it's a statement, but I tell you. Last and thirdly, what do you think you could gain from participating in a group therapy setting? And I've already said, I'm hoping you're not saying nothing, because I just think they're super powerful, Victoria.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, even I'm thinking what you thought of when you said outside of therapy. So my favorite podcast is True Crime Obsessed. I probably have mentioned it before.
You have definitely mentioned that before.
But they have a Facebook group that you can join. And then, but it's amazing, like the community that is in a virtual setting. And this year,
Right, the word community.
This year specifically, one of the hosts went on a traveling tour, and he visited different cities, and they would like meet up at breweries, and like he even came to Raleigh.
Yeah.
And they like would meet up at a brewery, and like you're making friends. Like their big thing is come alone. It's okay to come alone because you can always make friends, and people are all, and like even just it's so cool to just like, I'm in the group, but I'm not necessarily like an active participant, but it is cool to watch people are posting about their marriages, about like their dogs, and about like all these
There's
cool
something
things.
magical
and, like,
about people coming together. There's
like
something
50,000 people. Like,
powerful about being a part of a community. I mean, it's there's a lot there.
yeah.
There's a lot there. Okay.
Where are we starting?
Yeah. Well, let's focus a little bit on what we're talking about in the types of groups. Now, you'd think we're talking about just therapy groups, but we're really not. Okay, this is not a show at all about addiction. But, we talk about mental health and addiction, everything through the podcast. To demonstrate the power of how valuable groups can be, I have a colleague of mine, a high level of respect for Jeff.
Okay.
Jeff Shook, love you, brother. He hired me for my second big gig in the field. And then later on in our career, I hired him. So our careers have tracked, interestingly, for a long time. He's retired now. But I just have a high level of respect and learned so much from him. And so I value his view. And one of the things that he believes is the power of group.
Okay.
Such that he will work with people that have an alcohol or drug problem. And when that is identified, he will fire you as a client, meaning he doesn't want to work with you unless you agree to be a part of a group. And he defines that and spends a little time saying it's not just Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
We talked about that recently, guys.
That's
So you
last
should
episode.
know about that. But he wants you to be a part of any type of group, and he qualifies it by saying where you are specifically dealing with our emotions and a supportive environment. So he's not talking about like a homeowners association group. Right. There's groups like that are a little bit more superficial and but even then when you get into a group you could start talking about real things.
Yeah.
So he's only had to fire like 2 or 3 people in his entire career. So he really helps people understand the power of this, the gravity of this, and he helps people understand I know it's so much more ethical, not ethical. Has
Effective?
So much more efficacy. It's so much more effective. It's so much more likely that you're going to attain and maintain sobriety if you're in a group.
Will he take those clients back if they join a group?
Sure. 100%.
That's awesome.
He's only had a couple people that have absolutely refused, and he's carried that through. What I tell people when I'm working with a substance abuse person is I will say the same thing that he says.
Yeah.
But I will say, I'll work with you. I'll meet you however you are. I'm not going to fire you. Like, I'll come right up to that line, though, and say, I'm doing a great disservice, though, because if you're not a part of a group, we know what we know. Yeah. So that's, I think, lays out the power of how strong of an influence that can be.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think and we might get to this, but I think groups in general, and obviously specifically geared towards mental health related things, are seriously underestimated, undermined. Like people don't. I think people don't.
I think people understand it.
Yeah, and I think that might be because of a lack of understanding,
Yeah.
or from the stereotypes that people have developed about groups or whatnot, or like the fears or whatever.
The fears, okay, the stereotypes, the myths.
Yeah, the myths.
There are some of those for sure. Yeah, like, it's always driven me crazy, Victoria. I've never understood this from people. Like, I've worked in many agencies over the years, and, usually you have these sort of, like, team building activities and whatever. I just spoke about Jeff. For instance, Jeff was awesome about that.
Yeah.
He actually gave up his home. He let us come to his home, and he cooked us breakfast.
Oh, wow.
It was lovely. I mean, like bacon and eggs and, a whole real full breakfast. And then we would do an activity or whatever, and, we'd talk about the unit and, we'd have a meeting, I guess. But, it was mostly just fun, team building. And, these types of... Do you know how many people complain about that?
Like icebreakers and things like that too.
Yeah. I mean,
oh yeah, no, I mean people
hate it. I don't understand that. I really don't. I'm not working. I'm hanging out, having fun. I'm a part of a group. I'm connected to these people. I want to get along with them. But people hate the team building stuff.
Okay. Yes, I also do think sometimes it depends on the environment and the job.
Fair. What do you mean? Go further.
I can only just think of an example. So I used to be a school-based therapist in a school.
Right.
Obviously.
For instance.
Hence school-based therapist. But I remember sometimes the principal of the school I was at would call staff meetings or do these types of things at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And teachers would get frustrated because it would take away time from them getting their lesson plans done and doing...
Yeah.
So I think if you can do it in a manner that is, works with other people's things that way.
Let me jump in.
That's just what I thought about.
Let me jump in. Because I think you're hitting on something that is important. And I think it goes back to what we just said. I think people... I've been listening to you, and what that leads me to say is that people do not value that time. They value their time more to do a progress note or to do a lesson plan instead of valuing the incredible value of us being a functional and well-oiled machine working together.
Do you think it also...
And I think that's because of the confusion that people have
Probably.
and the myths and the fears, so we're definitely going to talk about that.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I still also think, though, that you don't need to plan a team-building exercise if you're setting a deadline for people to like have their lesson plans in, but then you're not giving them the time to work out their lesson plans. But
Well, yeah, we want to
anyways.
be reasonable, of course.
Yes, within
but
reason.
Yeah, within
but I do think that also, and I don't know if we might get to this, but like the difference when things like that are forced or mandatory,
Yeah.
force versus just highly encouraged to like participate in. I think that also, like
Jeff requires you to be in a group of some kind, managing emotion. If it's a substance abuse
Okay,
therapy
I guess
relationship.
more I was thinking.
It's interesting, right?
I
That's
think-
that's immediately where I think you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely on point. But he's only had to fire 3 people.
Well, and I guess in that sense, I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking about clients. I was thinking about me as an employer. If my boss is saying
Sure.
you have to show up to this team
Sure.
building exercise, I'm going to be like, oh.
Yeah, well, and I'm saying like it's funny because I value that. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with that, but so commonly people do, and I think there's
Mm-hmm.
something about that because there's something about like the avoidance that we have with groups,
For sure.
the fear that we have with groups, the vulnerability which is magnified in groups. Like groups are intimidating generally for people. I think is that a true statement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would even go far as to say sometimes they can be intimidating for the leader of the group as well, depending on their
Yeah.
experience with groups and
Yeah, fair
you know
enough.
if they've ever, done it before or done this specific group or
If you're new
whatever.
to it, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, people wet themselves like thinking about leading stuff for sure. Yeah, everyone's
I don't
gonna
want
be
to lead
looking
a
at
group.
me.
Oh my god! Like,
I have to lead. Yeah, yeah.
what am I going to talk about?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all of that. So, okay, what are we talking about? So there are things called psychoeducational groups.
Okay, so we're talking about the different types of groups.
Different types of groups.
When we say that.
There are psychoeducational groups, and those are really kind of didactic, but yet you'll discuss and you'll talk. But you're psychoeducational. You're talking about psychology, something generally, right?
You're typically probably not diving deep into personal experiences.
Right.
You're mainly there to soak up information to learn about new things or understanding
is where I got my start.
things. Yeah.
My 18-hour DUI education class. Remember?
Yeah.
I've talked about that.
Yeah, they're probably not sharing lots of deep, dark secrets. And
It was
their traumatic
psychoeducational.
past. Yeah.
We had sharing.
Right.
People would talk.
But
I was a student wanting to do therapy, so I facilitated crosstalk and all this. I thought it was great. I even messed with like seating arrangements and had people facing each other and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it was really just psychoeducational.
Yeah.
It was 18 hours of
Yeah.
education about alcohol and drug troubles. So you'll have those, and those are great. It's just a different type. Support groups. What did we
Would you
talk
say
about
those
last-
are would you say that those are the most common or the most well known?
That's interesting. Maybe so. Maybe the most well known.
Like if you say group, people I think would assume like
Support
AA
groups?
or support group. Like those are the two.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's other types of support.
Like when you
groups,
say
though.
group, I don't think about psychoeducational groups. Like that's not the first thing that comes to my brain.
Okay,
But sorry, that's a little
interesting
side-
question.
yeah.
The interesting thing there is, okay.
So and that's we don't have to.
No, it's okay because I think people get confused about that. What are we talking about? Is our segment
Yeah.
here, right? And so there are different types of groups. There are different group settings and such.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of that challenge is understanding that this is an education group. People would
Right.
tell me I'm going to class, right?
Yeah.
They don't say I'm going to my education group about DUI. They're going to class.
Yeah.
People love calling groups classes because I think it's just less emotional and it's more safer. It feels safer.
Yeah.
When you go to a support group, yeah, AA, NA, all the 12 steps and the support groups, but I would submit to you that a support group is a type of group where people are coming together to support each other.
Well, yeah.
Small groups in churches.
Yeah, it's a support group.
It's a support group.
Yeah.
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon.
Yeah, like all the
grief
12-step
groups,
stuff.
Yeah.
Grief groups. That's kind of a support group. It's not a psychoeducation
Yeah.
group. It's also not a therapy group.
Correct.
Okay, what's a therapy group?
So a therapy group is typically where you are. It's more like an individual session, but with a group. So it's more based around like that feelings and more therapy based. I know I'm not.
Yeah,
that's
no,
not
I think
really
you're on point.
descriptive,
No, you're good. You're good.
I see it as more of like you have the same things that you would do in a one-on-one therapy session. There's just like 10 other people.
Yeah,
Or whatever, or
and it
four other
might go
people,
into
or-
our process-oriented groups.
Yeah.
There's a section, a category of that. And then there's skills-based groups, but these process-oriented groups or therapy groups, yeah, it's I've done a men's group. I've done groups with. The teen group was amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing to do teen groups.
The therapy group is hopefully usually led by someone who is credited.
That's a good point.
Rather
The
than
group
like
leader's a therapist.
Yeah,
They know how
like
to do therapeutic
the group
interventions.
group or the support group, like the church group.
There are no formal.
It's just a volunteer who's like, yeah, I'll lead it.
Right.
It's not necessarily someone. Now, it could just happen to be someone who's also a licensed therapist, maybe. But
yeah. No, it's an excellent.
But yes,
distinction.
I would say that is very clear. Also, I would assume that even with the psychoeducational group, there would need to be some form of education behind said person.
Qualifications for the leader.
Qualifications for
Yeah, probably so. I think
Okay.
so. I mean, psychoeducation a little bit less or so, but therapy.
Well, I guess it
process
depends on
group,
what the topic is
yeah.
that we're.
So the question is, realize who your leader is, and that gives you a good indicator of like, okay, what type of a thing is this?
Yeah.
But all of that being said, and understanding sort of what we're talking about when we have these different types of groups,
Right.
it's just people getting together, talking, and that is
Yeah.
powerful in and of itself.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. Right. Okay. Think about some characteristics in the groups that you think about. You have purpose groups that are targeted. You have mastermind groups. I'm in a mastermind
Yeah,
group.
you're in one.
It's an
It's
awesome
on your calendar
experience.
every.
It is on my calendar.
every week.
It's a really valuable group of men that I have lived life with for several years now. Mm-hmm. Powerful.
And I mean, you're
interactions.
committed to that. I mean that is like same
It's
day every week.
Best thing that ever
Yeah.
happened in a long while. I needed that group. I mean, they have helped me tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Very powerful to live life and learn about life and grow together, and we confront each other and we talk about things like
Mm-hmm.
it's powerful. So, you've got open groups that are just ongoing every Tuesday, and we can start and stop at different times. There's
Anyone
closed
can
groups.
come, yeah.
Drives me nuts that churches tend to do closed groups. They start on this date, this many people, they end on this date. I hate that.
Yes. And also, our last episode, we did clarify the difference between a therapeutic closed and open group and like a open closed group in general. Because remember, I brought
Refresh
up
me.
that question. Okay, so
I don't remember. What did we say? I don't remember
So
why that came
like
up.
a therapeutic closed group is you start with the same people, you go 6 weeks, you end with the same people.
right.
Whereas an open, anyone can come in.
Right.
But a closed, like specifically, we talked about like an AA meeting. A closed one is you have to like sign, like you have to sign up to, like you have to be a part
You
of
to
it,
be a member.
or a member to be in it. Versus an open group, literally anyone can walk off the street and come join for the session. And then,
That's so funny. I forgot
know.
about that differentiation. But yeah,
Because that's where my
specific-
clinical brain goes. Was like, wait, what?
Right.
I was a little confused. So
That's specifically about AA, though.
yeah.
That's a characteristic of an AA meeting, being open or closed. I don't
Yeah.
think people generally see that or even think about it, really. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
they think about groups in those terms. Church group
Probably.
starts on this date and ends on that date, and it's 10 sessions. Okay.
Yeah,
They're
we
not
do.
thinking that's a closed group.
Yeah, even though
But
that's how we would define it.
Right, right.
Sorry, that's my therapeutic clinical brain.
Workout groups, those are supportive environments. If you have a group of
all
people.
all the running clubs that are like super popular right now in
Right.
like different cities where a bunch of people get together
Mm-hmm.
and meet up at a park and we like go for a 5-mile run together
Yeah.
and then like go to the bar afterwards or
Right.
something. Like that is a group.
That is a functional group together. And honestly, it might not meet Jeff's requirement for substance abuse treatment because it's not really for the purpose of going through your emotional
Right.
norms. But you go through your emotional norms
Yeah. Like,
when you're a part of even a
why the
running
heck
group
am I
like
running?
that. Right?
Just kidding. Yeah.
People do gyms all the time. Any trainer will tell you those are powerful experiences, and they will see people weeping.
I mean, my gym is
Routinely.
workout classes, and a lot of
Routinely.
times I end up working out like the same people come to the same 5:30 classes.
Yeah.
Usually, what I go to, and a lot of times like it's the same people there, every day or on, every Monday, it's like about the same group of people. And every like Wednesday, it's about the same group of people. And so, yeah, you're building this also sense of community that comes along with it.
Interesting, as I was listening to you, the thought that popped in my head is this is a really cool and important topic because of the way our societies around the world are now.
Yeah.
People are so isolated, feeling so lonely, feeling disengaged with their communities, but yet we're so interconnected with the internet and all that that we feel like we're seeing through Facebook and all of these connections. Face-to-face group hug, workout, biking, mastermind, I don't care what it is, it's a totally different flavor.
Yeah. I mean, and I will not to undermine virtual groups, because I do think sometimes for certain people they are needed and that's what's best for them, and like they can get like effectiveness out of it. But I would agree that there is something just different about face to face. I mean, there's a reason that even in my own personal therapy journey, I was like, my therapist offers all the time, well, we can do virtual if you want. And I'm like, no.
Really?
Like, I'm putting my foot down. I'm coming to this office.
She's putting it to you multiple times?
Well, she's just suggested because of like scheduling issues.
Yeah.
If I can't necessarily make it here, she's like, well, we could do virtual if you want. Like, then that way we don't have to like skip a week. And I'm like, no. I will move things around on my calendar so I can come see you in person.
Tick my peers off when I say, I think we're getting a little bit too addicted to
but I mean,
that thing.
I do say, like, yes, if you're out there and you need to do a virtual group because that's what works best for your schedule and, your needs, by all means do it. But if you can do in person, I highly recommend. I would agree with you. I highly recommend if you can do in person. Any type of group.
Have you incorporated a lot of groups into your practice over the years? Not so much.
Well, yes, I did a lot of groups when I was doing my school counseling internship and stuff. I had a lot of groups with the kiddos, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Which that is like...
I've never done groups with kids.
Kid groups are like organized chaos.
Yeah, I don't think that sounds like horrifying to me.
It is not for everybody.
No,
it is.
That's not my
game.
game.
A certain kind of person. But I think, I've done little things here and there.
Yeah, I loved the teen group that I created. They said some powerful things in that group, Victoria. I mean, they were just. Yeah. I walked away sometimes, these young minds, and what they came together and talked about was just beautiful and amazing. Shocking, honestly. Yeah. I've done a men's group, and and that was back in the days where men don't do therapy or whatever. Yeah.
So what they do this men's group as like a replacement for like it's
therapy. Gay, man. I ain't doing that. I don't talk about feelings. I'm a tough, rough guy, whatever. And dude, we get these guys that would come in this group, and this was in like 2002. So it's been years ago. When it wasn't as normal for men to be even in therapy. And, dude, the things they would come apart talking about, it was the only place in their lives. Yeah. And they've told me this. The only place in their lives that they can really come and speak to an entire group of people where they can get feedback and say things to other men that they never would dream of
saying outside of that group.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a powerful gift.
Yeah.
I have not been doing groups for a long time. It sucks. I don't know why. I've just... Well, I need to, you will probably see me develop a group over the next year,
I would
Victoria.
love to see it. I would love to see it.
It's probably going to happen.
And I think that...
Particularly a couples group.
If we talk about downsides, I think that the planning and prep for creating a group for the person leading the group might be one of the downsides. I know we talked about like there's not a lot, but because I just remember being in the school system as a school-based therapist and wanting to create groups, but then struggling to find like a time that works for every kid that I want in the or that because I think
it's a lot to lead.
Like a lot of schools do like groups of like divorced families or like, things like
yeah.
that. And so, but then finding,
share.
planning, seeing, okay, well, when is a good time for all of us to meet? And I know that can transfer into like meetings for adolescents and adults and teenagers and all the things. And I think that it's not a huge downside, but I think for the person leading and creating the group, that might be like a slight.
Well, I think it's not a downside at all.
Maybe not a downside, not the right word, but
I think what you're saying is it really is challenging for the leader. Mm-hmm. I mean, the leader really is working.
Yeah.
So honestly, whenever you're a part of a group, honor the leader. Honor the leader.
Yeah.
You just say, hey, I really appreciate you doing what you're doing. Because particularly in church groups or informal circumstances, they really are volunteering their time. And they're putting a lot into it.
Yeah.
They're really putting a lot into it.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot that you wouldn't think about.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about group leadership today.
Right,
That's
yeah.
literally a whole topic.
Oh, yeah. We could probably do a whole podcast episode
We
on that.
really could. And, might will.
Add it to the list.
Might will. But yeah, I appreciate what you're saying because it really isn't simple. And some people really struggle to be effective at it. Leading a group is not easy.
Oh.
Being in a group, which is our topic today, super easy. You can participate as much or as
not
little
at all. Yeah.
as you want.
And there's no judgment for.
Right.
I mean, the leader might encourage you to say like, "Hey, Chris, would you like to have anything to share about that?" But then you can just say no, and then like, not today.
It's okay.
And then they're like, if you have a great leader, they'll be like, "Okay, that's fine," and then they'll move
They'll
on
just
to like
move
the
right
next
on.
thing. Yeah.
That's what's so powerful about a group too. Let's talk about the benefits and stuff, right?
Right.
The gosh, groups are so powerful. They're so awesome. Like I love them.
Yeah.
And there are so many benefits. Somebody who's non-participating and wants to be, that is like totally okay. Like you just said, with no judgment.
Observing.
And you're gaining so much observation. Mm-hmm. It's not like because you're not participating, you're not getting anything
useless,
out of it.
right? Yeah, and it's not. Yeah.
Far from.
Yeah.
Like you're so gaining.
Yeah.
All of the things that we're about to talk about, you're just not participating a lot. And that's okay.
That's fine.
Right? So, yeah, I don't know. I just get excited, man, because
I love it though, and I do think that it's a good insight and a good way for people to see that like groups can be effective and can be a good place to be, and it's not all that scary, and
So intellectually, you can understand. I'm sure I'm not the only parent in the world to be frustrated.
Oh gosh.
Okay?
It feels like that sometimes.
It really, really does.
Yeah.
That's why I went there. I have said more than once. The best conversations about parenting that I had were on the sidelines of the practice fields for baseball or soccer or whatever.
Talking to other parents.
Talking to other parents.
Yeah.
When they say, oh my gosh, my kid will never pick up the towels, it's shocking to me. It's still shocking to me. Because I feel alone when I'm dealing with that pressure.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest powerful aspects of a group is you realize the only way that you can realize that is by direct experience from another person that is combined experience with you when you share your story about the towels on the floor. I will believe it then. Yeah. Like my mental system believes I'm not alone. When I logically just think about it, of course, kids are annoying and all parents deal with stress. I know this. I don't feel that until, Victoria, I have a conversation with you and we share our burdens.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, wow, I really am not alone.
I'm not the only one. Yeah.
I'm sure you've had those experiences.
My 2.5-year-old isn't the only one who's in his I do it stage. And literally, I require the patience that I do not have a lot of times because he says I do it. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
But yeah, and yes, and I think a lot of times when we're in the thick of those things, it's easy to forget that we obviously are not the only people or parents or whoever that have ever experienced, this thing.
Yeah, it's we just got a YouTube comment. Actually, it's from Miss Brown. Hello. Right. So she's saying, yeah, school classmates that make a point of meeting every month regularly, right? And she just makes the point to say that it is really awesome to reconnect, right? So you're forming relationships.
Wait, was that Grandma Brown?
Yeah, Barbara Brown. Yeah.
Hi, Grandma.
So, yeah, like you're forming those connections, those relationships, and when you reconnect, even like a monthly meeting, you only see these people 12 times a year.
Yeah.
But boy, man, you start tracking with them, and they track with you. Groups create a caring,
Well, and I think that
a sense of compassion.
yeah, like my with my dad's job, they go to a lot of conventions. Like he does the construction stuff, like so the AGC and all these other things. And it's so cool to hear my mom usually goes with him through the years. We haven't been with them in a long time, but anyways,
Right.
It's so cool to hear them talk about these other couples and other people who they've been going to these conventions with for like 15 years.
Oh, right, absolutely.
And
yeah.
they go, every 2 or 4 years or whatever. But then they like keep up, and it's so cool to be like, see them interact, and then, they'll mention people and I'm like, yeah, I remember them, or, whatever. And it's like, so you don't necessarily at first think of it as a group. I mean, it's an organization, but you don't, the people that you meet and the people that you connect with and like.
Stay tuned to Through a Therapist's Eyes, because and Neil and I have talked about it over the years. Don't know why we don't have. We're trying to get it organized and arranged and whatever, but I would love a Through a Therapist's Eyes community, right?
Yeah.
Forum, a place where people can come together and do exactly that.
Yeah.
Literally over the years. Guys, I kind of intend to create that. Okay? Like, that's something that is in my mind, because how cool would a international Through a Therapist's Eyes community on a forum be about mental health and substance abuse as a primary thing, and whatever you want it to be?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that not sound awesome?
It kind of does, yeah.
All right. What other kind of benefits do we have? Sense of belonging. You really
Yeah.
become a part of a community. You find out you're not alone. Like, what else occurs to you that's really powerful about groups?
I mean, honestly, like learning new things, not necessarily in the psychoeducational thing, but like if we're having like a parenting group and I'm like, okay, I'm struggling with potty training. And then someone else is like, oh, well, we did this. Have you tried that? Like, this worked for us. Have you tried this? Like,
Absolutely.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't think of that. That'd be
Sharing
like a great
and
thing to
blending
try.
of ideas.
And then I go home and I try it with my kid.
Right.
I only mention that because we're literally about to start potty training.
Oh, you're going into potty training.
Yeah.
Oh, have fun with that.
Thanks.
Have fun with that. It's a special time. We sang songs. Pee-pee in the potty. Poo-poo in the potty. We had pee-pee and poo-poo parties, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
We
All right.
digress.
I do digress. That was the poo-poo song. Anyway, shared learning. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is, you made me think about being a leader and having that pressure. And as you're leading a group, this is behind the therapist's eyes, if you will, right? And you start seeing that group warm up and kind of really interconnect. And we call it in the business, group cohesion is increased. Mm-hmm. Wow, it's so cool to have information sharing, man.
Yeah, and then you almost can like take a step back and you kind of just like watch everybody talk and like, you still lead, but
it's amazing.
you
It's
don't
lovely.
yeah.
As you therapists out there listening, when you get into a group setting and you're a group leader and you can get to a place where you're speaking very little throughout that hour or whatever your time frame is, you've done a great job.
As I said, that's kind of how you know you're doing a good job.
But your value, by
Yeah.
the way, is still really high.
Yeah.
How are we on time? Yeah, I got time. To demonstrate, draw that out, I remember a therapist, I won't say his name, early on in my career, because he missed it. We all miss things, but I'll call him Matt. That's a made-up name. Matt was running a recovery group, and it was a long-term recovery group. It was open-ended. Now we know what that means, right? People start and stop at different times, and it just runs through. But his group was such that he went to his supervisor, and he's like, "Look, I gotta be off this week or whatever. I think I'm just gonna have the group. They'll meet. I won't be there, and but they can still meet and do their thing and everything, right? And stuff." And she's like, "No, you don't understand." He's like, "Well, what do you mean no? Like, I don't hardly say anything when I'm in the group." And what she taught him and us, because it was in a group supervision setting, group supervision, by the way.
Yeah.
That's
Love
awesome.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And she said, look, you're got this group to this point that's awesome, that they talk to each other, and that's what we're looking for. Like, this is an A+ job in how you're leading this.
Right.
But make no mistake about it, your leadership that is nonverbal absolutely sets the tone, and you don't want to lose that. You don't want other norms to get created in this group, because there
Right.
are group norms. That's a whole nother
Oh, that's
thing.
a whole nother thing.
Right, but he didn't understand his value as the leader, but he also didn't understand how great of a job he was doing,
Right.
because he got to that kind of a setup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Valuable.
is really neat. Yeah, it's really neat.
Well, and I think you also get things like accountability and motivation.
Okay.
There are other people in the group that hold you accountable, like when you talk about things and provide that
Motivation's
motivation.
cool. Can I give you a metaphor I think about being a group leader?
Go for it.
Charcoal.
Okay.
Think charcoal grill.
Okay.
All I want to do, if I got like 4 people in the group, now let's make it a little bigger. Let's say 7 people in the group.
Yeah.
I'm looking for one person that really gets engaged. And I'll kind of go to them and talk with them and ask them and pull them in and gear the conversation, because that represents in my mind like a hot charcoal.
And then it spreads.
It spreads.
Yeah.
The motivation, the vulnerability,
Yeah.
the comfort just grows as that thing gets warm and toasty, because people start connecting, and man, they love it. They're so energized. So it's a charcoal.
Yeah.
Charcoal grill. Think
Okay.
grill.
Yeah.
Think grilling.
What else we got?
Multi-directional emotional movement. Let me tell you what I mean by that.
Okay. Go for it.
I'm sure you were looking on on our list, coordinating us.
Yeah.
So, I really believe, and I don't think you'll disagree with me, Victoria, when I say in mental space, we have emotional energy and we feel it.
Yes.
You know,
We have a battery.
we have a battery, we have energy, we have of ebb and flow. Sometimes we feel super drained, other times we feel energetic. Like when you're in an emotional space, we really need the outlet,
Yeah.
because it needs to, the energy, the hurt needs to move. And when it moves out of you through, even if you're writing to nobody and burn the letter, it moves out. In a group, when you move it out, it goes like to however many number of group members, 7 different people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of movement. Boom, just like that. And literally, you can feel it. Like when you say something to one person and then you say the same thing to 10 people, there's a lot more that went out of you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about it that way?
No, but I can see it.
Right? Speaking on an international podcast at first was like creepy to me. I was like, oh
But
my
there's
God.
like people in like Australia listening to us.
Literally hearing me right now. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Like,
They're
'cause it's
already in
going-
tomorrow. Yeah.
Right. They're already in tomorrow, for crying out loud. It's going out.
Yeah.
But I love it. And I'm comfortable with it now because I've
Right.
been doing it as long
I
as
don't
I
even
have.
think
But
about it. Yeah.
yeah, we don't think about it now. But did you at first? Curious. You were never dialed in that way?
Yeah, I think it would be different if it was like live in the sense of people were staring at me, or I could see people staring at
You
me.
don't realize that your voice is in Australia right now, do
Yeah,
you?
no. I get creeped out when I hear my voice in the lobby on the TVs.
Right. It is kind of creepy, but it's also powerful because
Yeah.
if you realize the impact that we're having is literally on that level. Very, very cool. There's just a lot. It's exponentially more than when you're doing something individual. In
Right.
regards to that case, you might even be able to make the case that group therapy is more effective than individual therapy.
Good.
Wow, right?
Yeah.
I'm not making that statement. I would need to think about that. I don't know how
Yeah.
you quantify it. They're just
Right.
different.
Yeah. How
but
do you measure? Yeah.
it's powerful. That's what I mean by exponentially. But, it's also exponentially more vulnerable.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So we probably need to transition to speaking about the myths and the fears and stuff that people have.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that goes into like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm going to say this to a group of people.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Well, and we already kind of hit on one of that a myth is that people think they have to share things.
That's
And
right.
we've
we did hit on
we've
that.
already mentioned that like, yeah, if you don't want to share, you can just say like, not today, or you just.
Why do you
don't
think
wanna-
people carry that myth, though?
Honestly, I don't know. Like,
I hadn't thought about it till you just said that, and the thought that was in my head.
Neil has something to say though.
Oh, Neil's got the
So,
mic.
so what do you rephrase that question really fast?
Why do you think people actually are intimidated or more vulnerable, or they don't?
Well, he's saying, where do you think the myth of I have to talk in
Oh,
group
sorry.
therapy comes from?
Yeah.
Like, where do people get that from?
Well, you have the old AA things of like, hey, my name is so and so, I'm an alcoholic, right? That welcome kind of thing.
Right.
So when you see that as the intro, you think you always have to elaborate more. So I think that's the biggest fear, and I think the biggest fear, depending on the group you're in, there is a lot of guilt. You know, why am I in this group setting? Why am I doing this? Like, I've made mistakes in the past. You don't want to talk about it, right? You don't want to be the one that brings up your problems, or, you know, that you're the reason these things happen. Sometimes the power of letting it out makes it real. If you do something and it affects someone you love or care about, well, when you talk about it, there's a lot of like you said, a lot of vulnerability, and there's a way that
It's scary.
and it is scary. But I think, as you point out, it is very, and this is where I think a leader becomes very important. A leader wants you to kind of engage, but not force you to overshare. Because I think the idea of like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, is a great intro, but then you don't have to do much more than that, right?
You don't
It's
have to do
that
any more.
icebreaker. I know the one group
You
I
actually
was
don't even have to do that
yeah.
to Victoria's.
yeah. Well, I was in a group for a while, and there was always an intro thing that they would make you lead with. And it's really like ripping that Band-Aid off that first
Right.
time you talk. It's really actually, it's surprisingly how
It's shocking.
yeah, it's very shocking, but it's also a big weight off your shoulder.
Right.
So
And that sounds like more of a therapy group or a process group or something where somebody's trying to draw that out.
100%.
Right.
But then what's great is, as you said, that myth of I have to say everything. No. You go through, you do your little spiel, you get that out of the way, and then it's up to you, right? Every week it's different.
I think to go into answering that, to blow that myth up, Neil, I feel like people, to answer your question or my question I asked you, Victoria, is there's a fear that there's a norm and people are going to be in control, and I'm not in control. It's me against all of them. There's like a weird power dynamic, or the
Right.
leader's going to make me do something, and I don't want to be out of control. And that's not the way it works. It's not like you
Or
just
any
said.
group.
It's not what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just AA.
And I think what's neat about any of the groups is the leader will coerce you or try to get you to participate. But once again, it's still your freedom, right? You can make that choice. I can, as Victor
Not
said,
coerce. I got to
wouldn't
jump
say
at
coerce.
that.
I would say challenge.
Offer.
offer. Yeah,
yeah.
because I couldn't coerce wasn't the,
The
term. I was
therapists are
like,
jumping on Neil.
Let's not use that word.
so
We're not
much
coercing
pressure.
anybody. We're not manipulating you. We're not forcing you.
Yeah. And there is that respect where if you say no, thank you, like I don't want to share.
Yeah, and
Totally.
and what's
Yeah.
nice about groups is you'll have opportunities, right? If you come back repeatedly, you will have that opportunity when you're ready. And I
Yeah,
think
you get comfortable. You know.
And I think that's the cool thing about when you have the groups, especially the therapy groups and those process groups. There's a big thing with you watch those people, and I think as to go against the myth, it's actually very exciting to see those people when you're there in sessions over and over again. You get that one person you see in the corner that never talks, and then they talk.
Yeah, and then they
And
finally
it's
raise
so
their
cool
hand to
because you
talk,
find out
yeah.
about their stuff, and it's really cool. But yeah, that is a big concern, and I think you hit on the head. It's a control issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk because if I talk, what ramifications going to have? Then I have to spill more, or I say something I don't want to say.
Judged.
Yeah,
right.
get judged.
When in
yeah.
reality, as you sit there and you listen, you're like, oh, they're just like me. That person did the same mistake I did, or that person goes through the same thing I do.
You know what I love? I love it when, and you see this a lot of times in church groups
Yeah.
and support groups like that, insecure or really shy or very quiet people will go to those groups. And it might even take a time or two. But I guarantee you, like, they get pulled out. They come out of themselves and they start participating. Like, I love seeing what you just said, Nick.
Yeah.
That quiet person
That
who's the
is,
wallflower child, and then they come out, Victoria. Isn't that awesome to
You
see?
do like an internal, like yes.
Yeah, it's like they're free now.
Yeah.
And you become free because the power of seeing everybody else in the group do what they're doing, and you are a part of the group, and that helps you to do what you want to do, not what you are controlled and told to do.
Right.
I want to be a part of the group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you want to be a part of a group? I love the show Cheers. Right?
Yeah.
You know, I go to
Where
Cheers
everyone
like
knows your name.
where everybody
Yeah.
knows your name. It's such a powerful concept that it made that show feel good because you want to be like it's a universal human experience to want to be a part of a group.
Yeah.
We're drawn that way.
Yeah. I love Cheers.
Cheers is awesome, right? I know.
Yeah. But also, I think you've already kind of hit on it. Some people think that it's not as effective as one-on-one.
Yeah, we hit that.
Also,
Might be more.
Yeah. Also, some people, I do think there is a myth that groups are only for people that have severe problems. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand. I mean, how is it that people feel that way?
And I don't
you know what
get
I mean?
it.
Like, I don't get it. I don't get
I think
it.
maybe we're a little biased. We're a little skewed.
Yeah,
Because we're
well.
therapists and we have experience with groups, leading them or being in them or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's because when people think of groups, I would assume most people think of NA, AA, 12-step programs, those types of things. And I think a lot of people view that as like, they have a severe problem. I don't have that big of a problem. I don't need group. Like, group's not going to be effective for me.
So maybe a big
And
old
I'm not
fat
saying-
rationalization.
Yeah, and
To avoid what I'm uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. I think you talked
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah,
And figured that out pretty well.
and so, but no, I mean, you can literally have. I mean, there's literally groups for everything. It might be hard to
Literally
find
what?
for anything. Everything? What did I say?
Oh,
I
you can
combined
find a
those two
group
words.
for anything?
Yeah,
Yeah,
anything and everything. Like,
know what you said
I
for a
mean,
second.
you can literally. I mean, like I said, I'm on a Facebook group for my favorite podcast. Like, there's groups. I have a client who's in a Reddit group for people who have loved ones with borderline personality disorder. Like, I mean,
Oh, I see.
Like,
so
it's
if you have
all-
you know what's funny? I get what you're saying, but
you get what I'm saying?
But there's a frustration
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
I hear a lot because
Okay.
you're right. You can find a group for just about anything, but Victoria, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm
Yeah.
going to make the statement: you can for just about anything, but it's really hard.
To find.
Yeah.
I said that. I said they're
Oh, did
really,
you?
Yeah, I said
Oh,
they're
I
really
didn't-
hard to find.
Sorry.
Rewind. I did say that.
Well,
They're
we
really
got
hard to find.
we got a red flag moment here. I just
Uh,
noticed
replay.
he has the mic.
Yeah. What you got to say, Neil?
Save us.
Well, I think when you go back to the severe problems, I think part of the issue is there's a lot of people that are in denial about their small problems, and they feel like those groups are only for when you've crossed over, not understanding the benefit before they cross over to those issues. And
I think you're on something really neat. Say,
I get
what do
what
you
you're
mean
saying.
by
I think I get it.
crossover?
so basically the idea, like when you, once again, the negative idea of severe problems, why do people go to AA, NA, or other therapy? It's like, it's mandated, right? Because you did something, right? When you,
Okay.
right. So there's that negative repercussion that those groups are only if you cross a line,
Like hit rock bottom.
hit rock bottom,
per
right?
se.
So, but what people don't value is that if they went to groups sooner before they hit rock bottom, you wouldn't get to those severe problems because people would underestimate the value of them.
You know, I think that's interesting.
Because you think about it, how many people are in AA or NA because they drank too much and they abused their wife, or they wrecked their car, or they did X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, they landed in jail.
But-
A crap ton.
Right.
A crap
whatever,
ton. Wait a minute. A lot. The vast majority are voluntary.
Right. Well, you mean they go before they get to that bad?
Yes.
You're saying so. But then the question, I guess, the thing based on the Daniel Glaser, while it might not have been major, like as far as law problems, but was it something dramatic in their life that led them to go?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I stand corrected. There's a lot of, particularly for a group like that, when you're in a state of crisis, that's a motivating life event.
Right.
And sometimes will land you in, a group or whatnot.
Right. So instead of saying, hey, I think I'm having a slight issue, maybe I should go to a group and see what's going on.
Right.
It's when they go down those downward spirals and you hit whatever that is, that traumatic experience for you.
Right. Yeah.
Once again, it might not be law breaking, it might not be anything horrible, but it's still that idea because they don't understand how valuable a group is before it even gets to that part, right?
Yeah, and I guess the same thing is interesting. I'm following you better now. I mean, because when somebody comes to a therapy experience, an individual therapy, a lot of times that's the same deal.
Yeah.
I mean, people are in crisis on session 1 often.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are all kinds of people that come just to improve life a little bit and whatnot. So there's a big variable there.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things. And I think looking at, one of the next thing is, when you think about a group, one of the biggest concerns too is if you're sharing your problems, can you trust the other people in your group because they're not professionals, right?
Right.
I think that's a huge myth.
Right.
But I think I think the most important thing is when you look at that, just like Vegas, what happens in group stays in group, right? So because everyone's in that same position, you have to think they're not going to go out and tell people like, oh, I went to group and this guy had this, like, well, what were you doing in that same group for? Right. There's this sense of camaraderie, brotherhood as the same people in those types of therapy process groups.
Yes.
And you have to understand that.
Yes, I agree with that. But I want to add that you also have to work up to that. Like, at least in my experience, like you have to work up to that. Like you have to have a conversation about that in therapy. And maybe that's more what we talk about as like the therapist role or the leader's role to set up these, depending on the type of group.
No, hold on a minute. I think you're in a different space than
Am I
talking
off
about.
base? Okay.
Yeah. Do you think she's in a different space?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Readjust.
Well, when you think about the treatment or the process groups and those types of things, once again, if you're there because you're ashamed or you're in that, once again, everyone's in that same position in you, right? This is different than a work therapy or a work group or a school group that you're forced there by the therapist, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, or your manager or whatever.
You
HR.
may not want to go tell people I'm in like
group X, right?
porn addiction group, and this other guy said, because then
Right.
you're probably going to get follow-up questions like, oh, why are you in a porn addiction group or something?
Right.
Is that kind of what?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. Like I said, I met this guy at AA last night. Said this. Well, why were you at the AA
I
thing
didn't know
too,
she was
right?
So
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about this, though. I'm glad you're really tracking with that way. That's cool, and I think you've done a good job in highlighting what happens. I mean, the big fear is I can't trust that this will be confidential and people won't talk about me.
Right.
You're correcting that, saying, think about this and look. If you have a group has cohesion as you're a part of this group. Other people are not a part of this group. Any level of group identity, any level of cohesion completely locks that into place, meaning other people outside of this group can't even understand what we're talking about.
And
Right.
It's we and us. And there's a word for that. It's called groupthink.
yep.
A natural process begins to occur in that groupthink space where it's us.
Sorry.
Took
I
a deep
don't-
breath, indicating thought.
Yeah, I just don't want to, and I could be totally off base here. I do, like, okay, yes, if your leader is a therapist, they're bound by board, like, to not share.
There's
But-
a professional level.
Yes, but I will
confidentiality.
say that, we cannot control other people. So would you say that there's not 100% guarantee that the things that
Absolutely,
you talk
I understand you're
the
doing
things that you
a
talk
classic
about-
therapist CYA thing here, but
Yes.
Victoria, think about it. When you say that to a group, and the many groups that you've
I mean, I
led,
wouldn't actually say
have
that
you
to her.
ever
Yeah.
had to go? Because I'll make this bold statement: I have never.
Yeah.
As many. I've been doing this for a long time now.
I know.
I've led a lot of groups.
I know.
Been a lot of different people in these groups. I have never once that I can recall had to confront somebody about
For
the
sure.
confidentiality of the group.
Yeah, I'm just,
It's never happened.
I don't know, my
Isn't that
anxiety
interesting?
just puts that out there. And no, I've never had the issue either in
Never
the
had
groups
it.
that I've led and the other groups that I've been a part
I mean,
of.
I haven't thought of that until
Yeah.
just now in this moment. But
Well,
it's
I'm thinking of
never happened.
the men's groups, right? That the mastermind men's groups. Like I'm in two of them, one with you, and I have a book study men's group, and
Ours is
it's-
better, right?
It's of course, but the thing is there's that understanding that this is about our space. This is our area
Right.
to talk about the things we talk about, and so
Yeah.
you once again, it's that group think. It's that idea of there's camaraderie. Like I said, there's a brotherhood to this. Like I said, if you're going there for the same purpose, now once again, if you're in a group that a therapist or an HR forces you to get in, and you don't have that rapport, that's a whole nother thing in itself,
Yeah.
right? And there is that concern. But for
Yes.
most places, it's like when they're
I
there
will
for a
say,
reason.
my thought is kind of off base. I'm just kind of putting that out there that there
I just
is
think you're
no
being cautious.
Yeah, there is no 100% guarantee that like Especially when in open.
You're
I'm
doing
sorry.
the behind the therapist
Yeah.
eyes, cover your ass
Yeah.
thing here. That's all you're doing, and it's fine. But again, remember, I've never thought of that, Victoria.
Yeah.
I've done the same speech to people in groups. That's part of the group law. That's part of
Right.
the group norms. And
Yeah.
we develop these things. This is
Yeah,
group
that's the whole-
leadership,
yeah.
so don't worry about that. But I've never had a problem with that.
Yeah, no, and I'm
In
saying
all
I've
these
never, I
years.
should put that out there.
All these years.
Also-
and that also honestly kind of surprises me. It's why
Yeah.
I've gone back to that again. It
Well, and
kinda
I think
surprises me.
I think it kind of does move on to the next thing that I want to point out is that a myth is that some people think that yes, they're in this group, but like other people aren't going to actually want to hear about my problems or hear about what I'm
Oh,
going
yeah.
through. And honestly, that's not. I can see where that myth comes from.
I love blowing that up.
Yeah, but it is totally off
not true.
base. Yeah.
Absolutely not true.
If people didn't want to hear about your problems, they wouldn't show up to the group to begin with.
It's part of the benefit of
Yeah.
the group itself.
Yeah, it's to
Literally.
hear. I mean, we literally talked about hearing other people's perspectives,
Right,
and like
learning.
accountability and all these things,
Cohesion,
and you
belonging.
you don't get that unless you talk about your problems.
People, right.
So yeah, I go back to the whole thing. If I don't want to hear about other people's problems, I ain't showing up.
And sometimes I've been a part of a group and felt that way and didn't go.
Yeah, and then you stop going. Yeah.
Well, just
Or
for
you-
an evening.
yeah.
I just took a break. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
You're like, I really
I'm
don't
not
want to
facilitated
hear.
for this today.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and I think the other with that one that's kind of interesting when you're in a group and you have your problems and you explain it, or someone comes in and they're really struggling with it, you feel as someone who's getting beaten down because of why you're in the group, the fact that you can help someone with their own problems.
Oh yeah.
By sharing
It's
yours.
so
Yeah.
well, even listening to them.
Or
You know,
even
you talk
listening,
about
yeah.
if, like I said, if you share and someone says, "Oh yeah, I've been through that. Here's how I've been." Like the reward you get that you actually start becoming more human. You're not just a piece of meat that's like I have problems. Like no, I'm actually helping this person.
Valuable.
It's very rewarding. It's very it builds you up. And if you're in these things because you have to be and you're already in a bad state, well now you feel more human. You feel like you're actually helping other people.
Yeah.
It kind of vindicates like everything you've done, or at least I mean not vindicates the right term. My vocabulary is all off tonight, but.
Now you're fine.
But the idea is it's actually very rewarding when you share with people that they can then help you back. So actually it's healing for you to get it out and it's healing for them to help
Yeah.
you back. So don't feel guilty for sharing your problems.
Well, and I think that also lines up with, and it's not necessarily listed on your thing, but I think a lot of people.
well, then shall not be mentioned. What the heck?
I think a lot of people think that, oh, I don't want to share, or why would I share when other people have it worse than me? Or like, that
Any
whole
insecurity
like,
that I'm
yeah,
not
the whole
gonna
like,
have so
oh,
bad.
all of our things that we share, our trauma or whatever, all have to be equal. And that's not the point of a group. Like, yes, the
diversity,
the
it makes it
theme of the
benefit, yeah.
group may be the same. Yes, like I'm a child of divorce or something like that may be a commonality, and like why you're in this group, but that doesn't mean that like you all have to have this equal level of like shared experiences.
You can be different.
And that doesn't mean that if your experience is over here and someone else's is over here, that doesn't necessarily make yours less than what that person experiences or had experienced or whatnot, which means you can hopefully still feel comfortable sharing those things without having this fear of like, oh, well, this other person had it worse than me. If someone already shared and they shared this horrific story and you're like, well, geez, like mine's not that bad. Like I shouldn't
You know what that
share.
speaks to me?
But like,
There's a major fear of being rejected.
yeah.
Because I'm not as problematic as this other person.
Yeah, so
and I'm
why
gonna
should
be
I
rejected.
share? Yeah. Or my
Yeah.
thing's not as important because it wasn't as quote unquote
No, as much
severe.
drama.
Yeah, and so therefore
have
I'm
any
gonna
reason
shut
to
up and
feel
not
as
say anything.
bad.
And I don't want people to think that. Like
Right.
we're in whatever group it is to learn and grow and better ourselves and work through things or whatever the reason that we're in. We're not sitting here nitpicking and judging each other for like what the other person for what someone else is saying or their experiences or whatnot.
I so want to throw this in before we're completely out of time.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to feel a little random because it doesn't flow with our conversation. But
Okay.
there are like, I love thinking about the personalities that come out in a group.
Yeah.
So you will find as you see a group, particularly that's open-ended, when members come in and out, you'll have people that are like acting like
Oh,
the
yeah.
facilitator, or they're acting like they're the note taker. You know, they play out different roles, and you wonder like, well, who's the critical person that's in this group, or you know, oh my gosh, the coaching person, the encouraging coach has left the group. Who's going to be the encouraging person?
Yeah.
And somebody else fills that
Yeah.
role.
The initiator.
It's so cool, right?
Yeah.
You take on different roles, and it's just kind of
Yeah.
neat. So let's end up on a little segment of, you know, how can you really get the most out of your experience when you are presented with the opportunity to be a part of a group. First of all, if you're presented in an opportunity to be a part of a group, I truly hope you take it.
At least try it out. At least dip your toes in the water.
Right?
At least, yeah. And if you don't like it, fine.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. Because every group is different.
But then don't give up on it.
And try a different culture.
Yeah.
Try a different group.
Yeah.
I tell people that with AA all the time anyway. Like, if you go to a meeting and you don't like it, there's weird people, that's fine. It's a different culture for that particular group. Go
Download
check
the
another
app.
one out. Go
Yeah.
check a third one out.
Yeah.
You'll find a few groups that you really, really enjoy because it's a different group of people. That's fine. That happens.
Yeah. I would also say be consistent, be open-minded.
Okay.
You know, especially you're going to get, and they say, you know, this kind of goes back to AA we talked about last week, but, you know, the more you work it, the more it helps. So
It works if you work it.
Yeah, and so I can't remember that exactly, but I think it's the same for any other type of group too. Like a lot of times you're gonna get more out of it. Like if you're in a grief group, you're probably gonna get more out of it by staying consistent and showing up to the weekly meeting, or you know, doing the things rather than going 1 week and then sporadically going. I'll go here. You know,
That's
like
letting your fear get you.
yeah, you know, make the effort. Put it in your calendar, do the things what you need to do to try to be. I mean, we get things happen, emergencies happen, like even like today, John couldn't be here, right? Yeah. Even though we planned to be. So things happen, we understand that, but try to be consistent as
If you have
can.
increased consistency, if you have increased openness, if you have, you know, a willingness, you can experience the incredible power. I think one of the biggest things is realizing, you know, to get the most out of a group experience, that you have your autonomy.
Yeah.
You really can say no. You're in control of yourself. No one's controlling you in the group. The group think doesn't control you. There's like no weird psychology that you're going to come out of this thing in a different, you know.
Right.
I think there's a lot of fear about groups. Like people talk about colleges poisoning people now. What's the word? They're conditioning or
like brainwashing?
brainwashing is a great word. Let's just stay with that. Colleges brainwash kids to make them more liberal. There's a fear that a group will change you in ways that you don't want to be changed. It just doesn't happen very easily, if at all. Now, I will say, groupthink is real. You can be affected.
Yeah, for sure.
You can be affected. But your autonomy, your belief system, your value system, your experiences, all the things that make up your perspective, no one else can change those if you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So
I would challenge is if you start a group, go 4 times. At least
4 times.
At least 4 times.
In a row?
Yeah, as close together as possible.
close together
And I recommend that because it does a couple things. First time is shock. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going on. Second time you start getting a little more comfortable. You start seeing the room. Third time you're looking at, okay, there's different people here. Is it good now? Fourth time you might feel comfortable talking. But if you don't give at least 4, I would say 3 to 4 times, you're not going to really jive. Unless there's some really bad juju vibes that you just don't like this group.
If it's not safe.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever it is. Even if it's safe, but you just don't feel good. Like I said, if you really have bad vibes, whatever, but you should at least give groups 4 chances to see what really happens. Because once again, you start building like, oh, I'm talking to this guy over here, and we started kind of connecting. Hey, maybe I'll go see if he's there next year. If you don't do that, you're not going to get the benefit. If you go one time like, oh, this is horrible, that's not going to benefit you. You have to break through the ice. You have to get comfortable. You have to start really seeing what it's like in real time for you. So I think if you're going to do it 3 to 4 times consistently, really in that short span, and really make it work, that's what I recommend. And that's a challenge. So stay consistent really early on. Go at least 4 times and give it a shot, whether you want to or not.
As always, when Neil speaks, he is on point.
Mic drop. Yeah.
He is on
I was going to say, it's very similar to individual therapy, right? don't just quit.
Yeah,
give
get
it, let it work.
Yeah,
Come a
one,
couple
one
times.
and done therapy
yeah.
session doesn't tend to give you a
Yeah.
good flavor for what the experience is going to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, we need to get out of here, but I hope that you've heard the excitement that I have. I mean, I bring energy to the show anyway because I'm
love it.
excited about mental health and substance abuse.
Yeah.
But groups are powerful, man.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my most cherished experiences and growth have happened in the groups that I've been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. I mean, there was this talk about supervision. There was a Gestalt therapy group that we were learning how to do therapy.
Yeah.
But that group was just so powerful in what I experienced and got from it. Like, I just want people to experience that with whatever the topic might be. You can
Yeah.
do something when you're by yourself and alone, and that's great. You can do yourself when you're one-on-one with somebody, and that has more energy. But when you get to become a part of a group that's all cohesive and has energy, like even a sports team, man, when a team works well together, man, they will wreck you
Yeah.
because it's just strong.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
all right, listen, if you find a part of a group, you take the opportunity and do it. You definitely won't regret it, I believe, is the truth.